restricted and confusing and sort of paranoia, and everything that the boxer basically lives through was something that I felt I was actually experiencing, and it played.
The milk expires in sports. The milk expires.
Yeah.
They have a short window, and they're
That's
under
right.
a tremendous pressure because their life is in a condensed time frame.
Once you sort of know that they do that and you start to read about it, I mean, you realize what kind of crazy extremes people go to. And that was really, I think, it's quite scary, but it was fascinating.
There is no ripcord.
Ready to ride.
Orlando, this really does feel like the performance of your career. So, what was it like to have such a massive physical transformation, but also have it play out over the course of the entire film?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like no acting required. When I kind of read the script, everything was on the page in terms of, and once I decided that I was going to do everything that Boxer did, from sort of nuts to bolts, I started with a nutritionist in LA who tiered me back from 3 meals to two to one, and eventually took everything from me, even my favorite form, nutrition powder, which was like my protein powder. It was like, no, take that. But it was like it like literally it was like I sort of got into the from doing like an hour of cardio in the morning to an hour of boxing to weights to walking at the end of the day, and then limiting the carbs and the food and the nutrition. It just all led to, the mental space became very restricted and confusing and sort of paranoia, and everything that the boxer basically lives through was something that I felt I was actually experiencing, and it played, it helped immensely with getting into the role. Yeah, for sure.
I can only imagine how tough that is, like remembering lines and just knowing how to hit your marks. And
Well, I was very lucky. John, I mean, John, you're only as good as the people you're acting opposite. And John and Caitriona were just remarkable in the film. And I think you see that three-way kind of love story almost unveil. I mean, John, who came in and actually took what was originally written a bit more like a drill sergeant, he just inverted everything and made it about seduction and love and something that was really he sees the character and he sort of he sees the weakness, or because that's his job as a trainer, and he just transforms it. So it was amazing to have those wonderful actors and to support, and and we blocked the scenes. That's something that
yeah,
was very important to the director Sean Ellis, and
yeah.
as he's a DOP, he managed to light it in ways that we were only in a handful of locations, and he made it brilliant. You never feel like you're in the same location twice, and that's down to him, really.
And John, your character is absolutely ruthless in his pursuit for the boxer to make weight.
Just like
Is
I
it
am in real life. I mean, exactly. It was,
is it more fun or more daunting to get to push Orlando so hard on
I
screen?
think, to be an actor is you get to do all these things that you would never do in real life. Okay. So there's freeing. And if you're working with really good people, and then Orlando's so dedicated that, it's kind of, he does a big part of your performance for you because
Yeah,
he's right there and he's completely believable. He really is disoriented. Katrina was really battling me, as far as who's going to be responsible for him. So what I always think is what happens between people in a
yeah,
movie, but he really drives the movie,
yeah,
and and when you see someone doing that, then you want to support them, and at the same time you want to do your job, which is sort of to get inside of him and to say, listen, I know you want this, but the only way you're going to get this is to do this, and that happens in sports all the time because their time window, the milk expires in sports. The milk expires.
yeah.
They have a short window, and they're
That's
under
right.
a tremendous pressure because their life is in a condensed time frame. You know,
When I talked to Katrina a few days ago, and she said it was so much fun to get to verbally spar with you on screen. Is it
she's
hard
great.
to build that kind of palpable tension between yourself and another actor?
No, because if someone's giving it to you, you're responding and then you're giving it back to them. And sometimes there's no tension at all between you.
Yeah,
And it's like you're working together. Sometimes when there's real tension between you and someone else, you can't be that free. That's a
yeah.
big mistake people make.
How different would you say your prep was for this movie versus something like what you do on Outlander?
Oh God, very, very different. It was so fun to try and do something different. I mean, originally in the script, we were going to have Caitlin doing some boxing. So I figured, it was good to sort of get the feel of what it was like to be a boxer and to sort of spend time in a gym. So I actually started training to box about 2 months before we did the film. And then they cut the boxing. I just got to do Orlando. But it was so fun, it was just really great to sort of get into that world. And I worked with this amazing boxer, Ruth Raper here in London, and she was like great. And we just sort of spent a lot of time in the gym, and yeah, it was nice. It was very different.
He's not a competitive fighter anymore.
Well, we hardly ever get to see this part of boxing, yet it's a very real part of the sport. How much did you know about the extremes of weight cutting, like prior to getting involved with this project?
I knew nothing. And the first time I read the script, I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like that's impossible. And then I talked to Sean, and then I also think I was watching some documentaries, and I was like, oh, like people actually do this. Like this is a legit, like an actual weight that people would try and attempt to lose or close to it, which I thought was so crazy. And then all of the things that you end up seeing in the film, like where they're scraping the sweat off with the credit cards, or doing the sweatsuits inside of the saunas and all of this stuff. It's once you sort of know that they do that and you start to read about it, I mean, you realize what kind of crazy extremes people go to. And that was really, I think, it's quite scary, but it was fascinating.
Were there moments where you're like, this doesn't really happen, does it?
Well, originally, when I first read the script, I was like, this can't possibly be true or can't possibly
Hmm.
be realistic. And then when you find out it really is, and I talked to some people who are in the boxing world, and even an amateur, they would talk about cling filming themselves and like trying to sweat weight out and stuff before even amateur fights and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy when you realize the kind of the underbelly of what goes on in that sport sometimes.
You get to verbally spar a bit with John Turturro, who is an absolute acting legend. Are those the most fun or like the most daunting moments when you get to have that kind of back and forth?
I mean, that was definitely one of the first reasons where I was like, oh, I'm in on this project. The fact that John was doing it, I mean, he's an amazing actor, such a legend. He's been in so many projects that I've loved over the years. And yeah, and like I think those are the things you get really excited about. And then when they're coming up, you're like, oh shit, I got to do that. But it was so fun, and he's like the most incredible guy. And we had, I could listen to his stories forever. You just try and talk to him about the acting world and the New York, theater world and all of that. And he's just, he knows everyone, and he's got the best stories. And it was really great working with him.
There is no ripcord. Ready to ride.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.